The Bring a Trailer Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bring a Trailer Podcast. Alex Porter coming to you from the Bring a Trailer studio here at headquarters and joined by Randy. Randy, thanks for being here as always.
Yeah, stoked to be here.
Intro of new podcast guest, somebody often mentioned but hasn't been on the mic yet, and that is Robbie Pyle. Hey, Robbie, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Have you done podcasts before? You're such a well-known Porsche guy in LA.
Never have, so
Okay.
this is the one for me.
Great. First and last after the total fail.
Yep.
Great. Perfect.
Hopefully not.
So my hope today was to start by talking a little bit about what you did this weekend. Your 911 is parked out in front and is nice and dirty. You were on the Snowball Rally. How did it go?
It's good, man. This is 15 years since I started. So my first Snowball was 2010. That was my first vintage car rally ever.
What'd you drive in 2010?
Well, I got a call from my cousin. I didn't know, I just didn't know that this world existed up here. So he calls me up and he's like, you got to do this vintage car rally with me. And I'm taking my 68 Sprite, his 68 Sprite. So fly up here, jump in the car, and we head over to, Hunters Point. And like my world just exploded. Like this is, I came from track driving and high performance JDM cars. And that was the first taste of it. And then I was just like, got to do all of them. So
was Randy on that event? Were you on that event, Randy, 2010?
I was. I pulled it up on BAT. I just typed Snowball into BAT.
Wow.
And here's the start, right?
Yep.
Everything from Bandit Trans Ams to
You were Fintail? What were you driving back then?
To Citroen, to Benzes. That year, I was in a 69 911T.
Oh.
White, black interior, red rocker stripes, sort of satin finish Fuchs on it. You remember that car?
Yep.
Ironically, that car was purchased from the owners of O'Kell's Fireplace, who own the building we're in right now. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't know you had an O'Kell's car.
Sue was on the title when we bought that car. This is Gentry and me back in 09 or something. We got that car, got it dialed in and ran it on that rally. And there was snow on the side of the road during that rally. We went up over the summits of the reason it's called Snowball Rally. It goes counterclockwise around Lake Tahoe. And they've been running that rally probably every year. I don't know if they quit in COVID, every year for 20 years now.
Yeah. And it was called something else before, right? Was it?
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, this is deep NorCal and San Francisco car culture. And the reason these things kind of sprung up is there's some just awesome, crazy people that would wrench on their own cars in their garages and then like create these drives to go have. And part of the inspiration was for that, we'll talk about it in a moment, was the Cal Mille, which was one of the greatest and still one of the greatest car events around in the US, if not beyond. But that thing's 10 or 15 grand to go join and drinking champagne and fancy people and stuff. And this thing was $200 to get in it. I mean, I also did in my ratty Fintail out there, and there's guys out there in Volvos and Sprites and all sorts of stuff. But you got roped into that because you were SoCal, but your cousin was NorCal.
He was up here, yeah. And so it was like an arrive and drive sort of situation. Flew in, jumped in that car, and was just blown away. I didn't realize like people would drive old cars in that fashion, especially around Tahoe like that. So it was fun. And that was when I met Randy and Gentry. I remember that car. Big Bring a Trailer banner sticker on the windshield.
Did you know what Bring a Trailer was already?
I did, yeah, because I followed it very much into step nose alphas. So every step nose that I hunted for, I would see coincidentally listed on BAT. And I would get a little mad because GTVs are how all the people would call on those cars as I was trying to snag.
And honestly, we would feature cars, and I would feature cars like looking for event cars, like cars with Snowball history and stickers on it. You'd be surfing Craigslist and you'd find a car that had like it ran one of these events. There was the California Mille, which is like a nod to the Mille. There was the Snowball. There's the Faultline. There's the Mother Load. There's one in SoCal called the TT.
SoCal TT.
Yeah. SoCal TT. There's an Aston that ran that was bare metal, like a DB2 or 3, like a ratty Aston that ran the TT, and it showed up on BAT with a TT sticker on it, which is so it's such an interesting sort of BAT deep cut, because it's like there's fancy cars, there's inexpensive cars, and on these cheapskate events, like everybody was welcome. And if you were like a rich dude, that's fine. And if you were like barely getting your British car over the start line, you were like applauded for that, you know?
Yeah.
Because the through line of people enjoying driving really just kind of drove the whole vibe. And it aligned so well with BAT. So we would make a calendar and promote these events and be like, come to the Snowball or come to the wherever. And I love that. I would stay up on those events at night, like downloading photos from it. And like,
that's how I found out about the other ones too, because I would go on the BAT calendar and be like, wait, what's next? There was a SoCal TT and I'm like, wow, there's one down here. And I ran that one in 2010, just a few months later. And that was great too. That's run by a guy named Tad and he still puts it on. And it's just.
Would you drive in that one, your own cars?
Yeah, I actually took it. So when I flew up here to do the Snowball with my cousin, 2 months prior, he picked up a step nose for me out of Monterey, step nose Alpha 67 GTV, and he was housing it for me. So we took his car on the Snowball, and then I got to jump in that car and drive it to LA. So I had my own little rally getting down there. And then I was just like, Motherload was the first one I did on my own, then SoCal TT, and then Faultline, and just was like immersed and doing them every single one I could. But the bummer was all of them were in NorCal.
That's the crazy part about
it is
like
weird,
San Francisco.
right?
I loved it because I lived in San Francisco, right? We hadn't had kids yet, and Meredith and I were living here, and I had a crummy little rental garage space that I had one old leaky car in that I'd try to work on, but it was really challenging. And all these people would have these like patched
was that
together.
the FJ? What did you have back then?
No, well, I had an FJ that I had floating around, and then I ditched that out of the city at my parents'
still have
house.
356,
Then I had
right?
still the 356, and then we started to kind of try to find places to put cars so that we could go drive on these events. You had to like be ready. It was like my social calendar was these events. But why was that a NorCal thing? I always also tried to feature like one popped up in Chicago for like 3 seconds, and I don't know if it survived. And people would always say, "Oh, you California guys having all the fun."
Yes.
BAT, you're biased to California or whatever. I was like, well, show me your dirty bag event in the Northeast that you're doing it. And they're like, we don't have anything like that. I was like, well, start something. I'll talk about it.
Totally.
Let's do it. Because it was so, buying and selling cars, whatever. I'm actually not that into that part, but like people being crazy and getting an old car and going and doing something fun, which is why the three of us really resonate. And this whole group of folks that has now scattered all over the country with all these stories.
Yep.
It's a different crowd that runs the event now. But what was it like the one you ran this year?
There was a community, people who wanted to go run all of these and build the cars. And everything you guys are saying resonates with me. I found out about the Snowball because I was reading Bring a Trailer. I went on it. I met both of you in 2014, the first time I did it.
Yep.
And then like same thing, I was hooked. I'm like, I want to do all of these, right? And now I've done, I don't know, about 10 of them. How many Snowballs have you done, Robbie? Do you know?
I was doing every single one up until COVID. And so I did 2019 and then I jumped back in and did 2022. And then this is the first year since. And it was great. Brought back so many memories.
Totally.
Just you're on those roads. It's like, for me, it's just escapism. It's like that colliding with my automotive passion. So it's like jumping in these cars and hitting the road. And, a lot of people feel alienated by them with the year cutoff. So I think,
well, they've changed.
They've moved a little bit. So it's like 1980, I think now. And it used to be pre-smog, only like 1975. But
although they always let my 76 in.
Yeah.
So there was always a little bit of loosey-goosey. That's happened on the Mille too. I'm excited to talk to Radio about that.
There were a couple Carrera, 911 Carreras to mid-80s.
It's like that era of, like, you have your idiot like high school youth, and then maybe you go away to school or whatever, and then you have like your 20s, early 30s. This is like what, and I'm a dinosaur now, right? But I'm like saying this was that era. It was like you somehow found an old car that you could own and be stoked on, and then you found a bunch of other people that had a crazy mix of this, and then you'd all go barrel over some mountain somewhere. And I'm friends with so many of these people now still, who you're going to lunch with today, right? Like who I'm texting with in Montana right now is like a dude that I met on all these events. And it was, oh man, endless. Sort of golden era.
All these names.
All these famous names in the BAT community too. And anyway, we're kind of raving about this, but to make it connect with people out in the audience, finding events like these and going on them is super meaningful and transformative and cool. And it takes a special type of organizer to do it. I never became the organizer of events, right? Like, we figured out BAT and we were good participants, but it needs somebody to organize it because that takes a bunch of effort. And I really always high five all those folks. So I just want events like this to thrive. But these did have a year cutoff. What was it? 74?
It was 75 and earlier. It was the smog cutoff, but they raised it to 80 on the Snowball at least some point, and the Mille.
And not just to be a jerk and like exclude folks, but it like sets a tone. It sets a speed on the road. It sets a feeling of, if you're like wrenching on your leaky car and some bro in a GT3 pulls up, no offense, Alex, on that event, you're just kind of like, this is weird. You like driving, but it's out of sync. But these cars, it's set just like a race paddock feel or a historical feel, or I don't know if it's even like a price level too. Like it would chill people out. Nobody's showing up in a new M3 or something, right? And so a lot of people have tried to reproduce this, but like allowing any brand new car. And you and I always said it never had that sort of feel.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, I'm obsessed with like time travel, and I love the whole concept of that. And I think when I dipped into these rallies, I'm like, whoa, like, you know.
Wait, are you talking real time travel, or are you talking about like this vibe of hanging out somewhere?
Like frozen in time.
Yeah, frozen in time.
Oh, I love the concept.
His cousin did drive a DeLorean on one of these ones.
I mean, like, I geek out on Back to the Future, all that stuff. But with these rallies, it's as close as you're going to get to time travel. You jump in these old cars and you're out there on these roads where nothing can tell you that it's 2015 or 2025. And part of that is because of the year cutoff. You know, you're not seeing cars from 2000s and stuff. So you're out there and it's just like, you know, you go from your busy life in the city to then just this escape to 1975.
Dude, I get bummed out when there's like a modern car in the background of one of my photos when I'm on these events, because I'm totally with you. You want to, like when you're driving down a road and it's only, you know, cars from the 70s or earlier, like it does.
Your periphery is just
100%
back in that time period.
Yep.
It's great. And you know, back then we used to stay at the Cal Mille, which was like this amazing, I mean, most people would think it was a dumpy hotel at that point.
Well, it was that too.
It was, yeah. But it just like, it had so much rich history, and we'd park the cars out front, and that's since been, I think, bought by Larry Ellison, and he's going to make it some crazy big spot. And
then you have to pull up in a GT3.
Yeah, G-Wagon. G-Wagon.
Well, now you've insulted me and Robbie.
I think for those events, that's the wrong vibe.
No,
I mean, you don't have to be some sort of hardcore and daily drive your TR6 or whatever, right? But to have that as an event car, everybody had an event car, right? Which was so special and so super cool. And I'm talking about this like it's old fashioned, but it's still going on. That's the cool part, is it's still happening. So did it feel vibrant? Were you having fun? Like 40 people there?
Yeah. I mean, it was great.
I heard 55 cars were registered, or 60, and some fell out.
It was up into the 50s. Some fell out because we actually saw some heavy weather this year.
Actual snow?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think 10 years ago, I was on it with you, Alex, and we hit some snow.
Yes.
And very reminiscent of that time. A lot of people have peeled off, like what Randy was talking about. I've created such a great friend base from these drives. I never thought that would be a byproduct of it, but my cousin sort of framed it. We co-drived it this year together. It was great. It was kind of like a 15-year reunion. And I was trying to get as many people from SoCal as I could together to come up and do it. And anyone that had done it prior up here, because it's kind of like a high school reunion, you know, where like it's only great if you're going to bug all your pals from back then to go. If you go and there's no one you know, or no one you were close with, it's not quite as fun. So, you know, I was texting and calling everyone, sending emails, and getting a core group together. And I think that really helped have a little bit of a reunion vibe. But it was great, you know, very similar route to what we would do back then. And again, you get out there and you're just like, man, 15 years has passed, but it's not, you know.
Feather River Canyon Road is like the same.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
And it's incredible.
Epic.
And it's also the same as it was, right?
Exactly.
You cruise through, what, Quincy? You cruise through downtown Quincy.
Is one of my favorite little
You
towns.
stop there and have a little beverage or a little
ice cream. There's that little ice cream shop there.
Place. And how much has that place changed, right? Since we were cruising through there.
And Virginia City. So we like come up over the 88, which is just like, that's when we hit the first snowstorm this year. And I was a bit sketched in the 911 on Avon tires. Like, how am I going to do this? I was texting Randy, like, how do Avons do with the snow?
Probably not great.
About to find out.
Probably not good.
But could report back to us how it did that work out.
Well, I mean, we didn't get a bunch of accumulation on the road, so I never got into any, you know, squirrely, icy situations, which was great. But the vibe was amazing. It was just, we pulled over on the side of the road, we're throwing snowballs. And then the differential in weather as well. You go from snowstorm to bright and sunny on the other side of the mountain. We stopped in Virginia City, which is this funky, you know, trapped in time, Western saloon sort of town, and then back down into, and then over Mount Rose, and then another snowstorm, and drop into Tahoe. And this year we stayed in South Lake Tahoe, which was a bit of a departure from years past where we'd stay on the North Shore. There's a whole loop of Tahoe, and then the next day we hit Feather River Canyon and just ripped out onto the levee roads, Sacramento River, back down into Sac. So.
This is not a fancy event. I mean, it's some beautiful scenery, but like it's very accessible, right? I mean, there's bug eyes in some primer on them, right? And there's 914s, and there's cars that are, people that are super approachable and chill and fun and easygoing.
And then you'll see a Dino show up.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
And he's ripping through the snow. And it's great. Like
a lot of O2s, a lot of GTVs, a lot of 912s and 911s, because those are the really good event cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were running with a swapped E12, and the guy was just like hauling it.
What kind of motor?
Yeah, swapped to
what? B30. It was like 3.5 out of a later BMW, but he was moving. I was like watching that big sedan.
That's awesome.
Around. It was great.
That's fantastic.
In 2017, I called the Snowball the season opener. Rally season opener.
Nice.
Because it's still kind of getting the weather. And then like everybody would kind of show their winter project that they've been working on. And all right, is it going to be ready for Snowball? Okay, great. And then you'd run a couple of these events through the year, and then you'd sell it and get a different car, or you'd fix it up or swap the motor or do whatever.
Did you guys ever buy or build cars specifically to do this, or like do big things? I did. I built a motor specifically because of these events for the green car.
For your 912. Yeah. My fintail was purely because we took a Giulietta on the Mille and bottomed the thing out, and it was so stressful because some of the roads are terrible, right?
Yeah. Dirt.
And there's dirt roads and then pavement with all sorts of potholes up near Lost Coast and what are those towns? Fort Bragg, like way northern.
Yep.
We drove that Giulietta Sprint, which was super low and like track spec and Heim joints and stuff. And it was the worst. It was so stressful on the bumpy stuff. On the smooth stuff, it was great. So I was like, I want a car with suspension and sidewall and comfort, but still has sort of a rally flavor. And so, I bought a 67 Mercedes Fintail with a 4 on the floor and built it into the rally car.
Yeah.
How about you, Robbie?
I kind of gravitated toward I was running an Alpha, but the thing that's tricky with Alphas is the damn oil pan.
Yeah.
Just slapping on everything.
Yeah.
And,
you were in the red step nose the first time I think I ran a rally with you.
Yeah, the red step nose. I remember our buddy Chris with the silver GTV, he blew his oil pan on one of the rallies. Yeah, I think it was on the Monday.
That little grill gated thing doesn't do much for you.
It pushes it right into the oil pan. It blows the pan.
Yeah, that's crazy. I saw another Alpha like smash his oil pan apart on the Faultline.
Yeah.
We threw him in the back of the Giulietta, who kept driving.
Amazing.
Because I had clearance. I had sidewall.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a thing. And so I then switched it up and got a 912.
Okay.
And it was just like, I mean, it was great. You could plow dirt roads, you're not gonna blow your motor up.
The green car was kind of a build for rallies, right?
I would always flip back between Porsche and Alpha, and then I bought that right-hand drive step nose, and I really put that one through its paces. Like all the fault lines, and the fault line is like heavy dirt road stuff. So you're out like plowing over Gloria Road, and you come home and the car's just got an inch of dust.
So filthy. The car's just so
filthy. You don't wash it off, so the next year you still got the same dirt on it.
The 911 looks great right now. It looks perfect.
It needs a detail.
You kind of built the black Alpha for that too.
Yeah, I mean, you can list them off, but I mean, there was a series of several cars that were intended just for those types of events, and was so fulfilling to get them done and then go run it. And to show up with the new different car that you're going to, I mean, man, I don't know. I was never there at Monte Carlo and San Remo and all this stuff in like 58, 59, 60. Yeah, but I wish that I was. And man, there's a few of these, they start in the Presidio. Which one started in the Presidio? Is that the Mille?
Yeah.
So I remember on a foggy morning, like pulling the Fintail and pulling the Alpha driving in from my house across town and getting to the start. And there's 60 rally cars and also, and like everybody's got a different flavor. And I love, because I'm a weird obsessive, like having something nobody else has. So having that Fintail and having that TI, people were like, what is that? Like, where did that come from? Right. And I had been working on it for 6 months myself, putting headlights in the bench the night before the event at my dad's house at like 10 p.m. And then the event's at 7:30 the next morning. Man, it was so much adrenaline.
And the Mille, the thing that was interesting about the Mille, that was kind of the top dog rally at the time. So it was like a 3-day rally versus most of these.
It had a lot more cars on it too, didn't it?
A lot more cars, and it was tough to get into back then. Yeah. So like me coming in green, 2010, I'm doing as many as I can. And
that's right. The other thing was like a clickish. I forgot about that.
There was this. And my cousin was all about, you got to do the Mille. You got to apply for the Mille. And I'm like, wait, you got to apply for these things. What's up with that? So I send in application. And I don't get in, and I was so bummed. It was 2010. I'm like, man, what happened? He's like, well, you got to try next year. Maybe I'll drop a word to the organizers about you. I'm like, man, this is crazy. But it helped create that atmosphere back then, and they really were curating the cars that were going on the drive and the people too. Yeah. It was like if they knew these people, and how they drove. And so it was cool. And so then 2011, I remember it first Melee, and I remember Gentry was on that one that you both were, and that was a good run. I had a white step nose at the time that I ran that one with. But I love the Melee and the North Coast, the Lost Coast, like all that Fort Bragg, like you mentioned. It's just like,
it's gorgeous up there.
Yeah, you stay at these dumpy hotels, but you know, it's all part of the vibe.
Party in the hotel parking lot, right? Some people, I was changing out the exhaust on the 356, and other people are wrenching on cars. People are pranking each other and having a good time. Somebody put, you remember that? Somebody put paper plate hubcaps and drew a Mercedes star on them and taped them to my wheels because I was hubcap like delete on the car.
That's so good.
So I had like Dixie plate hubcaps as I went driving out of there. You remember that?
Yeah. I remember the pranks were amazing. I remember someone did something to Huff's car where I think like 10 people got together and like lifted it up and moved it.
Amazing.
And he came out just freaking. I think something may have gotten damaged in that lifting situation, but yeah, it was
the parking lot hangs are maybe my favorite part of all of that. Was my favorite picture of all time is, I think you were both on this event. I can't remember. Maybe it was the mother loaded. We took Zach's blue 911T on an event. It was him, and his shift linkage broke. So I'm like sitting in the back of the car with that little inspection plate off. And maybe you took the picture, Robbie, but there's a suitcase of Coors like sitting next to the car. I've got one sitting in there with me, and I'm down in the little hole back there trying to get the shift linkage reattached.
I remember the shifter just kept
war stories, man. I mean, there's so many war stories from all those events, and you just did it this time, and right, you and your buddies that were doing it, right? There's more stories about whatever hotel or whatever you saw on the side of the road or whatever your car's oil pressure was doing, or blah blah blah. You know. So anyway, just some really terrific stuff. And what I love about it is it gives the cars some meaning and some history and some connection to yourself and other people. And it's like, why am I buying this old thing? Am I just looking at it in my garage, or am I going to go like get after it with this, right? It's like buying a bicycle and entering an event with it instead of just looking at it, right? Like it gives you something to look forward to, gives you something to prepare for, gives you something to invite friends. Anyway, such a cool, healthy part of car enthusiasm and culture and whatever. And I bet there's events like this for more modern stuff, but these ones tend to take a sort of 70s or maybe 80s, but 70s and older sort of flavor.
I really like what you said about controlling the pace, because that's good too. You know, these modern cars are,
I mean, you bring a $20,000 Cayman or whatever, and you'll blow the doors off every time in the event, right? But it's kind of not the point. And you can get yourself hurt if you're going too fast on some of these roads.
And you can also get closings. So I took the NSX right after I bought it on a DWA rally.
Yeah, and there's they allowed modern cars,
right? Yeah. There was like a 991 GT3 RS and also Alpha step noses.
Yeah. And you have 1957 at Le Mans.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Correct. Totally.
Yeah. I think it's great that like all these other rallies have spawned out of kind of this world. 100%. My only like advice I give friends with modern cars going on other rallies and stuff, if they have a vintage car, I'm like, go on one of these OG ones to experience where this came from. And there's a bunch of great takeaways that are just like embedded from years of doing these, you know, the Shug and Harley and stuff, putting these on. And there's just elements that then sometimes these later rallies where, you know, people just invent them out of nothing, they miss a bit. So
Agreed.
I'm always just like, hey, try one of these. And I'm always trying to drag friends to do some of these old, you know.
You can thrill yourself in an old car too. You guys are both very fast on these rallies, and you know, going fast in an old car is different, especially when you drive air conditioning. You really feel like you've accomplished something after a couple 100 miles of driving an old car. And there was one mother load where it was like 110 and you're just like sweating out of parts of your body that you just never sweated out of before, even though you're just sitting in a car, and it feels good at the end of the day when you crack a beer.
Yeah, you for sure accomplished something. So yeah, anyway, we could list off all the events that are happening, and a lot of them are California. We've talked about the Overcrest guys we partner with. They've taken this to sort of a new experiential way to do it. But they go to crazy places, which I love. That's like a traveling one that goes to different locations every time. And then are there others that we're talking about, or do we want to talk about the fancy one?
Yes, we should talk about the fancy one, because you mentioned that some of these events come out of it. California Mille, Cal Mille, right? It's all kind of related. I did feel super lame driving my 996 GT3 to go see the Mille, so you're totally right about that. But no, you
were a spectator. I mean, there were other modern cars.
There were, and I hated all of it. Like, I wanted to be there in an old car. Even if it was one that couldn't have made it onto the event, I wish I was there in an old car.
Yeah.
Because like, to your point, Robbie, you want to feel like you're, you know, part of the thing.
Transported there. Yeah.
Totally.
A lot of the places they stop, right? California Mille, the big one, it's $15,000 a year or whatever to do it these days. It's it's like a luxe experience, but it's on good roads. And that was invented by Howard's dad.
Yes,
right?
my colleague Howard's dad
who is like a legend in the area. And that's what spawned all these cheap ones, because all the cheapskate guys that couldn't afford that stuff, like me, like wanted to go on the expensive one, but there's no way that's ever going to happen. So all these lower dollar ones sprung up, which is how we all met each other. But the expensive one obviously still operates. It's amazing. I got to ride shotgun with Howard on it 2 years ago, and it's incredible. It's a tour through California, and it's very cool.
But you, in theory, you have to have a Mille eligible style car.
57
right? So
and earlier is
right.
what, and they have a selection process and all that sort of stuff. And they had 80 cars or something this year. Big event and heavy. I mean, gull wings all over the place. It's like very heavy, and it's always been like that. My dad and I used to go to San Francisco, drive up to San Francisco, and go to the start of the Mille.
Fairmont.
That was on our calendar
totally
every single year. My dad and I would walk up and down the cars, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, who in their right mind would like drive this still?" And anyway, it was just super special, formative for me. That's how I met Howard's brother and his dad the first time, and then eventually Howard. So anyway, a lot of history there, a lot of San Francisco history. And that event came through on Monday because their route was in NorCal. Sometimes it's not now. And we got to see the cars, and Alex, you and I went, and we talked to Howard, who's running the event, and some other friends that were there. And it was just special to see the cars.
It was so great. It really reminded me you got to get out and touch grass every once in a while when you're working on computers, you know, like, oh yeah, I do really like cars. It was super fun to be there with Randy, to see Howard and his brother. You would have loved it, Robbie. There were like 6 TDFs. It was like incredible.
I used to see that start at the Fairmont by accident, start when I was doing the Snowball.
Yeah,
it would coincide perfectly with it. So we'd finish the Snowball and then cruise up to the Fairmont, and all the cars would be out front, and I'd just be gawking over them like, they're going to take these out on these roads. And it was just such a picturesque setting for a start to a rally.
That's amazing.
Love cruising around there.
I have so many 5x7 printed photos from back in the day, and me as a kid, like standing next to it, whatever.
Do you have an ultimate car that you would run on either the actual like classic or kind of renewed Mille or the Cal Mille?
Gosh.
Would it be a gull wing? Would it be?
I mean, gull wings, super high on the list. There's some cool Porsches. It's you have to have an early Porsche. You can go run it. But I mean, gull wings pretty near the top of the list. There's a lot of Alphas that run it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And Aurelias run it, right? Like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
B20 would be up there for me. That would be a big one.
But guys run pre-war. There's pre-war Bentley on that one. I mean, if you're super hardcore, non-synchro British car. So yeah, people
SS 100 Jags.
Those are very welcome, right? Yeah. So
what about you, Robbie? Do you have like a dream Mille eligible car that you would have?
A 4-cam would be fun to run on that, just to keep that motor ripping through a week-long rally. Kind of like, just like running something that was like so ahead of its time from an engineering standpoint.
I would have to have a coupe. You both mentioned a coupe. There's a lot of dudes out there. One of the things I like about it, these are very heavy cars and expensive. And there's like people out there being real uncomfortable running this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're out in the weather, in the sun.
An XK 120 Roadster on a 90-degree day and wrestling it through the hills. You and I were driving up Skyline on the way out of the event. Did you see the red XK 120 in between us?
Yes.
2 ladies in it. Yep. And they were rolling, and I was behind them, and she was working. Like, it was work. And that wasn't the hardest road they were going to be on. Like, and not even close. Yeah. And they had a nice little posh rest right before that. And they're like muscling the thing through, right? I was like, man, you got days left of this. And I love that. But I respect it so much. Like, if that person stopped at the end, I would give them the biggest high five, and you are awesome. Yeah. So anyway, I mean,
you and I were talking to Allards, talking about something crude that you could run on one of those.
Yep.
Our buddy Comer, this was a different one of these kind of more upscale rallies. I think it was the Colorado Grand, but many years ago, I remember reading in Road and Track, he drove like a Cunningham C3 or C4R race car on it, where it's just like open side pipes and everything, like a Cobra would be tough on one of these, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, super cool stuff on the Cal Mille. Cool to see that they're driving through. I think they finish up here in another day or two, and that's a great event if you want to go on a nice event and stay at the Four Seasons and that sort of stuff. It's like, no doubt that's a terrific time, but pretty different than the events we all
But I went how they're all connected, It's like the Mille is a riff off of the one in Europe, and then We have the Melee, which is the riff off of Faultline. So.
People are looking for a similar experience, regardless of which one they're doing, right? Yeah. They want to be on interesting roads and interesting cars and be around other cars of the period and other people who appreciate those cars, right?
And there's events all across the country. And so I'm always, you don't have to like fly to California to do an event, right? I mean, there's cool roads. I was telling you about the Tail of the Dragon one. There's just different events that people are doing all over the place. And I would love to do them all. Like, they were like, dream life is just to go around and tour driving events. What a dream, right? And and not to mention outside the country or wherever else. So anyway, fun that they're ramping back up. I wasn't able to do it with you, but I was super stoked that you were rallying a crew on our staff and off the staff to get out there on the roads, and you did it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure our staff appreciates that. Who ended up making it? I know Mike the dentist was there. Cam couldn't make it.
Cam couldn't make it. Something happened with his car. And then we had Ward. He came up from LA with us. And my buddy Kyle, he's got a 67 Mustang. And that was fun. We caravanned up. He jumped in my car and he was actually getting it serviced at this shop that was like right in the Delta. So as we did the night stage, coming in to Sacramento,
dropped off at his car,
picked up his car. It was great. Awesome. It was just, and then he jumped in and we kept riffing.
Night stage is a signature component. Snowball only. None of the other ones.
Yeah.
They like started on a Friday.
It's like not in the route book and stuff.
Yeah. Cut across from San Francisco to Sac, and people have rally lights and stuff, and you're running on the levees of Sacramento in the flatland with lights blaring and cruising through these bridges and things.
It's such a great, like, I feel like I have to do that.
That's my favorite part about it. That was the first time I met Randy. My dad got us lost in the rain on one of those train bridges, and Randy was following in his blue step nose.
Oh, the blue car. I did that.
Yeah. Do you guys miss any of the, are there any rally cars that you wish you had back? Any of your cars that you really missed? Robbie, I didn't know you had so many different cars that you took on these events.
Yeah, I was really going through a lot of the Alphas back then. I had a white one, a white Junior, a 68 Junior that I loved, and I threw a 2-liter in there. And it was great. Set up like a GTA, you know, and that was probably one I missed. I do miss my Aga Blue 912 with 66.
That was a good car.
Yeah, I remember. I have a great memory of running that night stage with Randy. Can't remember what car you were in. You might have been in your Fintail.
What year?
2012.
I'll tell you right now. I'm on BAT. I posted galleries of every one of these events.
Yeah, we'll link to all
2012 was Fintail.
I think you're in your Fintail.
The Dusty Mega Gallery.
Amazing.
I came up with that at 1 a.m. after a bunch of beers at the Cal Neva, and like was downloading photos on their crappy Wi-Fi. Yeah, my dad would be my co-driver, or Gentry would be my co-driver. They'd go to sleep, and I would sit there. I mean, that's how I kept BAT alive back in the day. But I'd be up till like 2:30 in the morning, like trying to get the photos to download. I remember because I had this expectation that somebody would read it the Saturday drive on Sunday. But it was such a nightmare scenario because these hotels were little dumps, and I was like chasing Wi-Fi. And I had this like crappy laptop, and like anyway, I was trying to be a media person, even though I was just an idiot, like driving an old car, right? So it was super fun.
Like a media person, if only a limited media person.
I was like, can I get a press pass to the Snowball Rally? And they're like, what are you talking about? That's not a thing.
The photo that hooked me, I'm sure we can find this old post, was like a sunset shot in Sonoma where do you remember the Windows background that was that green hill that was on the background of every PC for many years? And that hill is somewhere like in between Sonoma. Dude, that's it. That's the shot. And I was like, I need to do this event.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. We had like a rain squall out of the night stage start. I was in the Blue Alpha. That was the first day of BAT auctions sold. So this is 2013 because the 2014. Man, I ran it on the Snowball and we sold it on the first BAT auctions like 3 months later. I was like, is this heaven? Like from Field of Dreams. And it was just, my buddy was there with me and we were like, look at the sky right now. This is crazy. And it was huge rain squall and it was wet everywhere. And the Alpha was soaked, and we got out and took these photos of the moment. And you saw that photo.
Yep. There it is.
I remember that.
It's so great.
Posted on BAT April 25th. Man, this is
very close. Well, we're just after
2014.
That was your first Snowball.
So maybe I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I see that. I think what happened is I drove past Randy, stopped on the side of the road, and saw him taking the photo. Now that I think about it.
You're there. I mean, there's your green car.
Yeah, there I am. Okay.
This gallery, I've never figured out how to get these photos out of Flickr. We lost all our credentials to Flickr, and like, I can't get these photos out. But look at this. I mean, this whole thing was crazy. We'll post this.
We'll link to all this stuff.
Like, I didn't know how to take photos, but it was one of those moments where like the moment like will let you take incredible photos. I'm trying to find a picture of Alex if he was driving by.
I met your dad on that one too. He brought the turbo Corvair to that to the start. He didn't run it in the event. But that's how I remember. I think I met him a little bit before I met you. I was so excited to see that car because you'd been writing about that car too. Do you remember that? Alan's maroon Corvair turbo Monza.
Amazing.
And that's when I met you and your dad.
Yes. I didn't know you. I went on a couple of rallies with you without knowing who you are. And my buddy and I were kind of obsessed with you because you always had really cool cars. You were fast. I remember you telling me one time you would never sell that red step nose. That was one of your favorite cars too.
I had that for 10 years. That was a 65 Sprint GT.
That's about as long as you keep a car.
We've sold that forever. I
sold it on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But still miss it. It came back through and I was thinking about it.
Thumbs up from your dad, Chuck, and a wave from Alex driving out of the start.
Chuck and the car broke on that.
I didn't even know you. You were just like a dude in a green Porsche. And I was like, that's cool. Where's that guy going?
There because of BAT.
Come on. So good. Come on. I can look at this gallery all the time.
That's when I took that great photo of your dad in front of your car.
Are you the one that took that photo?
Matching
with the sweater.
And that was when it was snowing. It was like up there at the top of the snow. That's right.
So cool.
Yeah, that was when it still had the little anemic 2-liter with injection. I was like, I can't keep running this event with like 80 horsepower.
That was
so I built the motor for it because I needed to. You were in your red step nose. You had a blue 356 at one point, though.
A couple years later.
And I remember like we could out accelerate the 912. Like, this is not good. This is not good. We've got to do better here. We've got to do better here. You were fast in that car, though, too.
I love that car. That car was, I think Randy featured it on the site.
It's a C, right?
It was a C. Bought it bare metal. Bought it from Car Planet up here in San Francisco.
That's right. That was the Car Planet car. Yeah. Speaking of, early SF.
Tie-ins. I love the fireplace 911. I can't believe I'd first.
O'Call's. Yeah, it was on the title. O'Call's fireplace. That car still rallies. That guy won't sell it to me.
Really?
Yeah. He's a cool dude. But he's
the guy who bought the white car.
It went through a mutual friend of all of ours, and then it went to that guy, and then they kind of refined it and made it much nicer than when we had it. And I was like, I'd love to have that car back. And he's like, nope. And I'm like, dang, dude, come on. There's some heritage in that car. We used to park that car on the street in SF, like on Polk and on Union and on Sac and like on all these places when you're going out to restaurants or shopping or doing whatever. And it had BAT on the front fenders. I mean, that was like the first sort of quasi company car. And I was like, Gentry and I was like, dude, we're living. Somehow this business snuck us into a bratty 911 and we're like parking it in the city. I was like, this is like the dream. So good. It's unbelievable. I was so stoked on all that. That's like 09 era.
Well, I had another topic I wanted to talk about. We were able to talk rallies the whole time. So well done, guys. I had a cool question from a podcast listener. So we'll bring that up next time we chat. But thanks for doing this, guys. Any parting shots? Anything to close out with?
No, just lots of love for all you rally organizers and participants out there. Send us what you're doing. Tell us, bring us along. We'd love some invites to some cool new events. The ones that we don't know about, we're waxing about all the ones that we know, but there's a ton out there that we don't even know. Yeah. And you guys are either organizing or doing. That's always been sort of in the BAT DNA. And so we want to support those and send cars and come drive because it's fun.
Amen.
I agree. Just keep the faith in these old rallies and keep them going. It's great to inject new blood into it.
Thanks for doing this, Robbie. How was it? Was it okay? A little less painful than you thought?
All right, I look forward to the next one.
Great. You're now a regular. Awesome. Well, thanks, gents, for this. And thanks to everybody for listening. Feedback, questions, concerns to podcast@bringatrailer.com. We'll catch you next time.